Well, after a beautiful day today, it looks like the clouds are going to be rolling in tonight here into Ohio. So we might as well work on doing a processing video. And what I want to work on today with you guys is this. This is the dark shark. I shared this in one of my videos that I put up a few months ago, talking about the red cat, I believe, in the 2600. And with all the new processes out there like Blur Exterminator, so on and so forth, able to go ahead and work through this again and just kind of have some fun with it. And I've also noticed that a lot of people have shot the dark shark, but there's not very many actual videos on there. So we're going to try to make this really simple and come up with an image that looks similar to this. You know, you're never going to be able to duplicate it, but we're going to try to keep it simple, minimal masking, all that kind of stuff. This really wasn't super hard to get to this point right here. Got about 11 hours in this image, and obviously the more hours that we would have into this with the one-shot color camera and such a small telescope as the Red Cat 51, you know, we'd be able to pull out even more of the dust that is surrounding the dark shark. But I kind of like the way that this looks. It just really, you know, it's a perfect size. Sometimes you see a little bit bigger, but I'm pretty happy with the way that this looks. So I'll show you exactly what we started out with here. And, you know, we've got, again, like I said, about 11 hours into this image. And this is it right here. Go ahead and just apply a screen stretch to that. And we're going to unlink everything. And this is what we're looking at right here. So this is our data. We got just a slight gradient going across the screen, and it's pretty simple. So let's get started on the processing. The first thing we're going to do, this is obviously the brand newest version of Pixinsight. So this is cropped. This has got the astrometric solution on it, so we can use the SPCC color calibration and all that good stuff. So we're pretty simple. We're just going to do a simple dynamic background extraction, and I'm just going to move the points around to make sure that they're not on the dark shark. You could do a super stretch if you wanted to, but the dust is still pretty hidden, so it's kind of difficult to get in there and actually, you know, keep these points off of what is going on in the dust. But this has seemed to have worked out pretty good, so just going to plaster everything around and make sure that there's moved dots around, make sure we're not over any type of stars or anything that are super bright. Just basic tolerance 2 to 6 and a regular smoothing factor, nothing crazy. And we'll just apply the dynamic background extraction to the image, and then we will go ahead and re-stretch that and get rid of that. So now you can see we have gotten rid of all of that gradient and everything that was in there. From here, we will hop right into the spectrophotometric color calibration. And I like to choose my 571 sensor. My filters are not actually in here. It's an ITIS filter. So I'm just going to be using the regular Sony RGB UV IR cuts. And then we need to just do a simple, small little preview somewhere, like down in here. And that is going to be our region of interest. So that way we have a reference for the background neutralization. And we're just going to go ahead and click the button. And since I have everything all set up and installed and all that stuff, it's just going to go ahead and process all this and give us a pretty good color matching. And there is our output graph. We'll apply the screen stretch to that, and we'll just go ahead and delete the preview off of there. And we're pretty much ready to go now. So now we're ready to go ahead and fire up Blur Exterminator. And this is the latest version. And I'm going to be doing the correct first method and manually entering in my full width half max, which I have got using the dynamic PSF function. I've done this a few times, so I know it's 1.9. There's plenty of videos out there. I don't want to bore you guys with all that. And I do have CUDA enabled, and this will only take a few seconds. And that looks pretty good right there. Obviously, we can blink back and forth like everybody likes to do. And you can see how our stars have been minimized, and hard to believe if there's any sharpening going on in the stellar regions, but you know, it is what it is. Now you can still see that we're not perfect up here in the corners, just the way it is, but you know, again, that's life. Now I do think I actually want to run this again, and I want to increase the star halos a little bit, just because I like having the way that the stars look with a little bit of halo on them in this image, especially when we add in a little bit of saturation. All right, we are done with Blur Exterminators. This is where we sit right now. We've got our image ready to go. Now at this point, some people might take out the stars, stretch, whatever. What I like to do is just do an initial stretch on the stars. All right, so now we're ready to go ahead and stretch this. And what we're gonna do is we are actually gonna use just the Easy Processing Suite, Easy Soft Stretch to start with. And then we'll go ahead and do all the fun stuff, pull out our stars and everything like that. But this is just kind of a nice way to just set us straight, set our balance and all that kind of stuff. And then we can kind of go maybe into the generalized hyperbolic stretch after this. So that's our first stretch that we've got right there. And if we now go into GHS, what we can do is we'll go ahead and select the image here. And here's how everything is looking right now. And what I want to do is just kind of make and zoom in right here. And I'm just going to click on this dusty portion here and send this value over down here to focus our actual stretch on. And as I explained in my video that I did on this, you know, you just want to do small iterations on this. You don't want to go like super crazy because it could really get out of hand real quick. So we just go ahead and pop that out a little bit. All right, that looks good. I think I want to switch to saturation and just add in just a touch of saturation before we get much further. And that looks good. Got that going on there so you can kind of see the image here. And I think at this point it might be safe for us to go ahead and take out the stars before we do any more stretching. So we are going to switch to Star Exterminator. And we're going to generate the star image and unscreen the stars and drag and drop. All right, so we have our stars and everything else ready to go. So we're going to close Star Exterminator, and we're going to take our stars and just kind of park them up there. And that way it gives us a little bit better of an idea of what we're looking at here. So let's go back into the generalized hyperbolic stretch and try to stretch this out a little bit more before we jump into curves and start playing with that stuff. So I think right now, let's try to work on a brighter area. They're all so close on this one. They're kind of jammed in there. So there's really not, you know, it's all like the same actual levels. So it's pretty hard to differentiate everything. You know, eventually you're just going to be pulling things out, and it's going to be really hard to protect your background. But the thing that's good about that is we can go and fix that. Now, if you wanted to, you could drag this slider here and push things back, and it might drop the background darkness a little bit and leave some of your stretch, but it doesn't really do a whole lot for me, in my opinion. And, you know, bringing up the shadow point, all this is going to do is just actually move the stretch even further. So we'll go ahead and just apply that right there and reset. And then I think we'll just pick one more point on here, right here, and reset the zoom. And we'll just go ahead and just do a little bit like a 0.6 and then just drag it in just a little bit, like to 0.5. So that'll be pretty good right there. All right, we'll go ahead and close that out. And GHS likes to leave you with a pretty fuzzy looking image and stuff sometimes. I'm not 100% sure why it does this, but it just kind of does. It's just how it actually stretches everything, but pretty easy to fix. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to jump into curves here a little bit. And if we bring up a real-time preview of everything, and I want to try to bring our histogram up here and see where all this stuff is. So there's our high stuff kind of right in there, and then our low signal is pretty much about right in here. So I'm going to drop a point there and drop a point here, and we're going to pull down on this point, and that's going to drop down our background levels pretty good. It's also going to kill a little bit of our stretch, but that's all right. And we can bring some of that high signal back like that right there. We'll reset that, and then I'm going to drop the point down just a little bit more. And again, raise this just a touch. I think that'll be pretty good spot to work from right there. So there is our image, and we've pulled out some stuff. Looks kind of nasty. It's upside down, all that kind of good stuff. Before we proceed anymore, let's just go ahead and let's just clean this up a little bit with Noise Exterminator. And that should help us kind of differentiate things a little bit, and also help when we go to apply some masks. So I'm just going to turn detail up to like 40 and denoise at 0.5. And there we go. You can see how big of a difference that made. So now we should be able to lock in and focus in a little bit more on some of these terrestrial items that we want to look at. But you can see we've got pretty good color separation and detail and everything. We've got some little galaxies and stuff that's just kind of peppered all over the place here. I like it. Really like it. So let's see. What can we do now? Well, let's go into curves transformation a little bit. And I want to use curves transformation just to pull out a touch of green. I don't want to use any of the SCNR on it, because you can go pretty quick. You can see you can shift to the red really quick. And if we just reset everything right there, you can see I just want to grab the middle and just move it just a touch. And that'll just kind of change things just enough for us to kind of clean up the colors a little bit. So that way we've got more of the reddish brownish kind of dust that I think that most of us would be looking for. You can see we haven't done anything really crazy on this yet. The image might have a little bit of a purplish bluish type of hue to it, but I find when you add the stars back in, it kind of hides and masks all of that away. So it doesn't work out too bad at all. So at this point, it's kind of up to you. You could really just add the stars back in and start playing around and have a pretty dang good looking image. But I think we can do a little bit more with this. We can try to do to kill some of this background color and stuff a little bit. So sometimes you can run another instance of DBE, and we can see what that is going to do. We're going to make our samples pretty small. And then we're just going to kind of put them in the obvious darker parts of the image and see if we can bring any of that darkness back out and kind of separate everything a little bit. So you don't need that many points, but you want to kind of have enough so you can give DBE enough information to work with. So let's do a subtraction on this and see what we get. Boom, there we go. So that is quite a difference right there. And Actually, if you want to go back, we can't go back. If we would have looked at the actual background model, you would have seen just how much of the nasty stuff it would have taken away. But you could obviously see the color change that we have now is pretty good looking. So we've got a lot of good looking dust and all that kind of stuff. Really liking the way things are looking here. So just to keep things simple for everybody, for all of you new Pixinsight people, I think at this point we're going to go ahead and put the stars back in. Before we do that, we are going to make a little bit of modifications to the stars. Now, stars, a lot of people like to just nuke all the green and everything from a star, but you know, stars do have all three colors built into them. So what I like to do is bring up the histogram a little bit and a real-time preview. And then pretty much like I did before, I'm just going to pull back on the green a little bit. I don't want to go all the way down here because then it's going to make our stars like super magenta. But we'll just pull back on the stars just a little bit. And then we'll get rid of that. And then I'm going to actually increase the saturation of the stars by going to the color saturation tool here. And we're just going to grab this bar here and just raise the overall saturation up just slightly and apply that to our image. So this is what we're looking at here. So now I think let's go ahead and let's just put everything back together. And for that, we need to go ahead and change these identifiers. Change this to stars and change this to starless. And then we're going to open up my little pixel math that I have, which is down here. This is how we put screened stars back together. And we're going to get ourselves an image now. There we go. So we'll go ahead and get rid of the stars. And I'm liking it. So I did notice that the dynamic crop didn't look very well from the auto crop. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit and chop off that edge. There's also like a pesky looking little star that sticks out down here I've noticed before as well. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. And we don't need our astrometric solution anymore. So now that is done. And finally, we'll take some geometry here and we're going to rotate this baby 180 degrees. And there is our image right there, looking pretty sweet. Now, from here, there's obviously a lot of different things that you could do to make this your own. We can say, hey, let's take out more green and see what that looks like. So if we do the SCNR here, get rid of all the green, it doesn't look too bad. Looks a little bit about the same. Not a really big difference there. We can also go into the correct magenta stars, and if we turn this down a little bit, it will just go ahead and take some of the magenta out of the image overall and out of the stars as well. And you can see it kind of cleaned up the magenta areas down here, left us with some pretty nice dark brown looking stuff as well. Now, to me, this image looks great. The stars, I think, are a pretty good proportion, but, you know, since we're doing a tutorial here, if you want to, we can go ahead and we can run one of Bill Blanchen's awesome star reduction tools. So the first thing we'll have to do, of course, is pull the stars back out. And that's okay. So we're going to do his clone for starless. So it's going to name that starless. And then we are going to use star exterminator. And we're just going to pull the stars out of this image right here. All right, now that is done. We can just go ahead and park this baby up here. And then I've got Bill's different star reduction methods over here. I always like to just use method 3. And we can just drag and drop these now. And there we go. Boom. Like, we are totally good. Everything looks great. And I mean, it's just a beautiful overall flat type of image. Nothing is really popping and taking away from each other. The shark does stand out. The stars and the dust and everything are in pretty good proportion. could have taken this into things like Photoshop. You could obviously do way more masking work to bring out different areas of everything. But I think overall for these kind of like big dusty images, like having just kind of like a consistent thing across the image is just pretty much pleasing to me. You know, if we take a look at the original one that we did before and compare it to this one, you can see that this time we did a heck of a lot better job at bringing out all of the dust than I did back a few months ago when we did the tutorial, and gonna have to give the thumbs up to Blur Exterminator for that, just because it was able to we're able to like just minimize things and just kind of just sharpen things, and also the generalized hyperbolic stretch. You can just see just how much more we were able to pull out. Doing that extra dynamic background extraction really helped out. And then, you know, of course, there's so much more that we can do with this image now compared to the original if we wanted to. You know, there's a lot more color and stuff that we could pull out. You can see this one is way more contrasty because we've got this dark background with very faint dust, and then we've got this super bright shark. Now, if I look at these two images side by side, I would definitely like to have these colors of the stars and everything, I think, in here to just have a little pop. But, you know, for now, I think that is a pretty good looking image. So let me know what you guys think. You like number one, this is like the 10th time I've actually processed this image. I just can't get enough of it. I love shooting these type of big, wide open spaces. And I am in Bortle 6 skies, so it's nothing spectacular that I'm doing here. This is just, you know, what we try to do here on the channel. Just try to make it easy and simple as possible. And you can see that with all the wonderful tools that are in Pixinsight now, we can just, the sky is the limit with even a modest setup like my own. So thanks a lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed all this. Peace.